Equals in Tech award ceremony, which is not to miss. I hope you're all going to be there for that. Very exciting. We had some unbelievable nominees, and the winners are also incredible. I had a sneak preview of the profiles of those winners. And those are the kinds of examples that we need to promote, we need to talk about, and we need to support, because it is small things that can actually scale and ramp up and make an impact in closing the digital gender gap in terms of entrepreneurship and in terms of making women equal partners in the digital ecosystem. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for being here. I want to thank our partners. And I believe we're going to be handing, or maybe I should hand back to you, Danola, who you can now see, and she will tell us who's going to jump in next. But thanks again for being here for this important effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doreen, for those inspiring words. Now we'll hear from Deborah Gibbons, the CEO of Mary Kay Global.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be with you today from Mary Kay's headquarters in Dallas, Texas. I would like to thank Doreen and her team at the International Telecommunication Union for hosting us today, and our WEA Partners for organizing this event as we celebrate WEA's 3rd anniversary. The topic of today's events, Women's Entrepreneurship is Driving Innovation, is personal to Mary Kay. Our company is, at its core, an entrepreneurship development company. Whether it's supporting our independent beauty consultants as they develop and sustain their business, or procuring services from women-owned companies, we are committed to creating a pathway for women to thrive. This focus on entrepreneurship development has at its origins our founder. A trailblazing entrepreneur, Mary Kay Ash, created a company which offered women an opportunity that had been denied to them by corporate America. In 1963, when barely a third of American women were in the workforce, she developed a retail business plan and identified beauty products as the vehicle for women to advance their economic status. Her business plan was focused on nurturing women's entrepreneurship through access to education, training, innovation, mentoring, and networking. Her dream of elevating entrepreneurship as a profession has blossomed, and today Mary Kay is operating in nearly 35 markets around the globe. In 2019, taking the vision of our founder further, we formed a novel partnership with the United Nations, the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, or WEA. With our 6 UN partners here today, we are committed to creating an enabling ecosystem for women entrepreneurs to maximize their development impact. We know the positive impact which gender-inclusive innovation ecosystems can bring about. Women entrepreneurs are more likely to invest their earnings in their family's welfare, thus strengthening their communities. And because women-owned businesses also tend to employ more women, supporting women entrepreneurs helps bring more women into the labor force. Research shows that innovations by women tend to offer solutions to neglected issues, which address significant social needs. In developing countries, women-owned businesses make up 17% of all businesses, and a further 35% aspire to do so in the future. If these women entrepreneurs enjoyed the same access to resources, including digital tools and opportunities as their male counterparts, think about the ripple effect on their economies. It would also enable these women to accumulate earnings, assets, and economic power, all of which are key to tackling inequalities. Let me turn to the role of innovation in the digital economy. The global pandemic transformed the landscape, challenging entrepreneurs to pivot to digital. This transformation offers tremendous opportunities to advance women's economic status by addressing mobility and time constraints, by opening up access to knowledge in international markets, and enabling women to engage with a broader network. However, we know that digital acceleration can perpetuate inequalities, and the benefits are not always equally balanced. We must address these inequities and create an environment for women to fully participate in the digital economy. At Mary Kay, our digital ecosystem has expanded over the years to empower and support the needs of our independent beauty consultants and their customers. We've invested in the development and rollout of innovative tools and applications, from award-winning apps featuring augmented reality to connecting independent beauty consultants with their customers in more effective and seamless ways. Mary Kay is also a proud commitment maker to the Generation Equality Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation. The digital economy won't wait for anyone to catch up. And by also prioritizing gender-responsive procurement, creating a conducive policy environment, increasing the capacity of women entrepreneurs to attract investment, and growing their business skills, WEA is focusing on designing an inclusive entrepreneurship ecosystem. Foundational to each of these WEA priorities is the use of digital technologies. You will hear firsthand from our UN partners in a few minutes on the amazing initiatives they have developed to foster change. Creating a truly inclusive economy is too big a feat for just one company or one industry to shoulder. We need more cross-sectoral partners to scale this work. With WEA, we have a turnkey platform to shape a more equal and inclusive digital marketplace in society. Let's not miss out on this golden opportunity. Thank you.
We're very, very grateful for those wonderful remarks there from Mary Kay. Just before we start the fireside chat, can I please ask the speakers to please pose for a picture together, and then we'll go to the next bit of the agenda, which will be the fireside chat. Maybe standing might be best, just to, if you all don't mind. Thank you so much. So now we move on to the next bit on the agenda, which will be the fireside chat. It will be moderated by Marco Bizzo, our head of cybersecurity division and chief of the Digital Networks Society department here in the ITU. Thanks for being here with us, Marco, and I hand over to you.
Thank you, Dunola. And hi, everyone in presence and offsite. And thanks again to also the participant offsite that have provided a video message. Thanks, Doreen, for your word as usual, inspiring. I'm already converted, so no need here. Maybe let's try to convert someone else. So, well, this is a fireside chat that by definition is a chat. So let's try to get a little bit more informal here. So remove your shoes. If you're a gentleman, remove your ties. You can bring him back at the end of the chat. So my name is Marco. I'm leading one of the department in BDT's called Digital Network Society. And one big piece of the work is, of course, on digital inclusion and on gender and Generation Connect, which Dunola is working on. So again, I think this issue is really at the core of some of the work that I'm doing and we are doing collectively. So I have here two esteemed guests, Pamela Coca-Hamilton, which is the Executive Director of ITC, International Trade Center, and Arji Beres, which is the Director of the UNDP office in Geneva. And we're going to have a little chat about, how we could actually carrying on strengthening, fostering, and promoting some of the principles that, of course, Doreen mentioned, but overall how we can really generate an impact within the framework of the Women and Entrepreneurship Accelerator. So just let me start with a couple of things, like housekeeping. Of course, the session is recorded, so you can access later. We have in person and offsite, as I said, so there will be video messages from other speakers that couldn't be here today. That would be at the end of the little chat. And then we have also hashtags. So if you want to access social media like She Trades and Women Entrepreneurs and Gender Equality, so that would be a good way to get in touch. Okay, so a couple of questions to both of you at the beginning. A bit about, how let's say, this topic, and generally where I can can align a bit with which is already, but how we can carry on alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. We are, I think, 8 years, a little bit, maybe less, 7 years to 2030. 2030 was supposed to be the date to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. There is a little bit skepticism around if we are going to do that or not. For sure, there are issues or, let's say, barriers like conflicts, like climate change, the cost of living, and there were several articles even from the UN about how this can be obstacles, COVID, of course, to the achievement of the goal. But despite that, the UN also is investing a lot in gender, and as Doreen said, there is a significant return on investment in having women engaged into the entrepreneurship and to the leadership roles and everything. There is an obstacle and opportunity at the same time. So Pamela, how, for example, ITC is managing that? How is addressing the gender piece, and what you are doing as an organization to address the kind of challenges?
Thanks so much, Marco. It's really good to be here. Thank you for having me here, and congratulations to Doreen. I didn't know you hadn't taken up yet. When is it?
How many more days? On the
Oh,
1st
days.
of
Okay.
January.
All
I'm
right.
counting the days and
Okay.
hours.
Okay. Well, we'll celebrate again on the 1st of January. But thank you also to our partners who've joined with this amazing Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, and congratulations on the 3rd anniversary. I think that we have a great opportunity to do a lot more together. And I think that, as we move forward into what Marco has described as the multiple crises that we're facing, I think we have to learn to pivot, and we have to be more responsive in ways that actually enable women to achieve their long-term goals. I think one of the things that we also need to look at is that, regardless of age, of ethnicity, nationality, wherever we're coming from, as women, we pretty much all face similar challenges. There's no rubric that prevents us as women from facing the same issues. And so I think our ability to pull together as women in policymaking and providing equal opportunity, I think, is going to be important. There's also now new statistics that, this 132-year gap, which frankly is now apparently 300 years. It's not very encouraging. But I'm an optimist. I do not think that, I tend not to believe in these huge numbers, and I'll tell you why. About 33, 34. Anyway, 1989, it's a long time. Some of you weren't born, but in 1989, as on a diplomatic training program in Germany, in Berlin. And it was in the middle of East Berlin, but it's West Berlin. So, it was the middle, whatever. And so the first program, as a young officer, and I asked the professor on this diplomatic training program, because I was representing Jamaica, I said, what, with all this glasnost and perestroika, what do you think is going to happen with the Berlin Wall? And, do you think it's going to have an impact, etc.? And he absolutely said, no, under no circumstances. It's going to take 10, 15 years for something like this to happen. Needless to say, by November 1989, I was climbing the wall, dancing on it, and drinking champagne. And so what I'm saying is that a lot of times these predictions tend not to take humanity into, there's a human element that when change happens and people decide to change, it changes, irrespective of what, the prognosis and others have said about 132 years or 300 years. I mean, things can happen in a day. And so I operate from that standpoint, that things can happen in a day and that every crisis presents its own opportunity. And I think this particular crisis or multiple crises that we're going through does present that opportunity, because what it does do is allow us to recalibrate the way we're going to build back better and how we're going to move forward to make our economies more equal. And so I think for us, it's putting more women at the center of the rebuilding, of the empowerment, and of the recovery. Doreen mentioned some statistics about, the trillions of dollars that are lost when women are not included in the economic development. The fact that you can preclude 50% of your populace from engaging is kind of silly by anybody's estimation. And therefore, one would think that common sense would begin to prevail on this. ITC specifically, what we've been doing is, one, we've been working more with the private sector, trying to ensure that we begin to work at the level where the women are at. We also are working at the policy level. How do we engage at the policy level to look at issues like gender responsive procurement, looking at issues like encouraging women to become part of the system as opposed to being outside the system, moving more women from informal into formal so that their voices can be heard. Advocacy is important. We've also looked at the partnership, of course, with the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator and with Mary Kay, and we launched 27 courses, basically the A to Z of entrepreneurship. I think I should study it myself, because it's very important for women to get the kind of training and resources and knowledge to enable them to do this and do it effectively. We launched what I call the Gender Moonshot earlier this year. And it was a recognition that gender is important, but even more important than gender is ensuring that we are upping the ante in terms of what we want to deliver for women. I'm one of those who, I believe in trade agreements. I believe in agreements. I believe in ensuring that we agree on things. But one of my difficulties is that that agreement tends not to translate into reality. And so one of the areas for the moonshot is, how do we translate all the things that we've said, all the agreements that we've had into on the ground reality for women in the workplace and elsewhere. One of the other areas we've been looking at is, how do we empower girls? I always think about Desmond Tutu's statement that, we need to stop asking, we need to stop pulling people out of the river and asking why they're falling in the first place. And we have a tendency to try to solve the problem at the end rather than at the beginning. What's happening with the girls? I was in Niger for the AU summit 2 weeks ago, and I met with the president of Niger. And he, which was very, frankly, encouraging, the president of Niger basically said, we have a problem with girls. They're getting married at 14 and having children. And by the time they're 20, they already have 4 or 5. So that immediately puts them at a disadvantage vis-a-vis women's economic empowerment or anything else. So one of the areas that I want to look at is what I call She Trades Girls. How do we expand to actually begin to look at where the problems start? And how do we ensure that women are empowered to move forward there? The second thing is that besides the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator and ensuring digital engagement, because one of the things we found also in COVID was that if you were online, your ability to survive was multiplied by a multi-factor because you were online. If you were not going to survive. And so that's very important. The access to digital and the ability to afford this is important. The second is the agriculture and the fact that women are 50% of the agricultural sector, but they have less access to land, less access to finance, less access to technology and the new climate smart agriculture. So that's an area that we think is important, and we're working on that. And then the third is looking at what Doreen mentioned about the profitable sectors. The most profitable sectors are in STEM. And where are the women? Not very present. It's up 32%, but I really think in some cases it's actually 5%, depending on where you are. 32% must be Europe or the United States, but in part of the world that I come from, I don't think it's that high. And so we want to be able to ensure that more and more girls are getting involved in this aspect so that by the time they get to 25, they're actually writing, the AI and all the various things that matter to us. And I'll end with one last anecdote. one of the things that has concerned me also is if we have less women and also less women of color in spaces like this, then we have less responsive decisions and technology working for us. I was at COP 27 and it was wonderful. Egypt is glorious. And Sharm el-Sheikh was wonderful. Huge thing. First of all, I decided after the second day that the reason we're having issues is because there were no women in the planning. That was clear to me. One bathroom, of course, there were lines for the women's bathroom continuously. You had to kind of strategize which time you were going to take to get there in order to get in. There was no water available, generally speaking. Eventually, water came in. There was no process by which you could get food properly. There was one food place with little pockets around, but there was no. So in other words, when women are not included in certain fundamental decisions about structure and about it affects everything. And it's, to people, it's the little things, but the little things are the big things. And so the issues of even things like makeup and hair. I know there are Black women in here. There's a huge study now about what's happening with Black women and how many of us have been having endocrine issues, endometriosis, all linked to the chemicals that we have to put in our hair in order to fit into places like this so that it's straight. Sorry. So, you know, no, these are realities. And so if you have less women and women of color who understand the challenge, then we continue to have difficulty. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Wow. Thank
Sorry.
you. That's really, no. I think you really hit the main pain points, and I mean, I don't think I need to add anything else, but inclusion, empowerment, I mean, that's something that it should go all over the place every time. Okay, maybe from your side, maybe you can also give a perspective from UNDP and what you think personally, what UNDP is doing in the same sphere.
Thank you very much. It's actually very difficult to add to this after Doreen and Pamela. And also, I don't want to make the picture even dire that it's already sounds like. I have a lot of statistics here that I was supposed to be sharing with you, but I feel like then the fireside chat becomes a little bit of a depression therapy in this room. But I do want to say, though, that I think we've had this challenge for so many years. Just in my career working in development, I do feel that the numbers are the same, but recently they gotten even worse. And I think that's the major problem. So that's kind of what I want to add to these statistics and the quotes about women. I mean, partially it's the pandemic, which reversed the advancement that we had and some of the critical gains that we had on women's participation, whether it's economic, political, or social. And now partially this kind of compounded crisis that we are facing. But I think one of the things that the pandemic actually showed of the reason why we see this reverse, and that actually emphasizes the problem that we have with that, is that even when women are gaining per se in their economic and political and social advancements, a lot of the times it's really restricted to sectors, to areas, to approaches that are short-term, that are not sustainable, that are really hanging on a couple of particular anchors. So who is hit first? The small entrepreneurs. Who are the small entrepreneurs? A lot of the women who are like self-made one. Who is also the gray economy, the gig economy, all of these that, you know, puts also women in that category that, I mean, partially it's those that were already kind of near poverty or near on that line. But what we also see now is that this kind of crisis we are facing, whether it's a pandemic or now the consequences of war and energy security, food security, that we actually have this layer of a bit of a middle layer who were not poor enough to benefit from support before or the social safety nets. They were okay, but they were also not established, rich, and kind of anchored enough that allows them to have the kind of safety nets behind them that would allow them to gap such uncertain times. So there is this kind of in-between middle layer that falls through the cracks because they are not caught up by the social protection systems, but they also not benefiting from the usual kind of self-protection systems that are there. So this, I think, is particularly hitting women. And what we also see is hitting women not only in developing countries, but we see now developing country effects, statistics in developed countries. Even just if you look at Europe, my own country, coming from Hungary, we can see impacts that we have not seen before. So this is, again, I don't want to be depressive, but I think we need to take this very, very seriously. And that's why even though we are addressing this with certain programs and certain initiatives, what we are all collectively struggling with is scale, it's connections, it's systemic solutions, it's basically the kind of linkages that we want to see between climate and gender equality, women's engagement. We want to see between economic empowerment and so forth. So from UNDP's perspective, where we are focusing is trying to see how we can bring in some kind of system thinking to that and address the issue not just by our usual way as the UN or development programs, which is let's create a project, let's create a program, and then we will address this pocket of women and that community but how can we do it in a way that we actually work with those who can provide a long-term solution? Whether it's Women's Chamber of Commerce, whether it's local governments, we have a program on mayors' economic development that will actually then look at systemic solutions that eventually will benefit also women. And I think, these kinds of approaches on accelerators, innovative solutions is an extremely a core to it. Because when we talk about innovation, we don't mean innovation that we need a technical solution or a new gadget or an app or something. That's very important that it's part of it. But innovation should be about also how we are dealing with policies, with kind of new ways of engagement, how we are connecting private sector and the public sector. So I think it's underestimated because when we say innovation, people have a certain image of it. And we're really trying to advocate that innovation is about systemic change. Innovation is about, if you define it, it's about doing things differently, new ways that will generate different results. So in that sense, it really has to focus on transformation. So how we can create an environment in which transformation is possible and that this transformation will actually lead to impact at scale. So without being very theoretical, but I just want to give you a few examples of how we translate that into the ground. If we look at, for example, the policy level, we are working together with some of the other agencies, the World Bank and governments and all involved in this, looking at how actually financing, public and private financing is structured in countries. Because at the end of the day, you will see you have to follow the money in some ways. Where the investment is, that's when you will see the output. So we're working on the so-called integrated national financing frameworks, which really look at the SDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals, but very clearly trying to align gender-related outcome, climate-related outcome to public budgeting, public financing, but also with kind of policy decisions that governments make on how they incentivize private financing going to different outcomes. And this includes some border development programs on women's financial inclusion programs. For example, in Bangladesh, we developed an e-market for female-owned kind of apparel shops that are now accessing new customer segments. And this was incentivized by a systemic approach of policy changes, but also empowerment, training, and a number of things that need to come together. Also, we have some very good examples in Mexico where we working on the financial inclusion of indigenous female agricultural cooperatives. So there are a lot of things you can bring together where you actually support for example, the indigenous cultures and the traditional trade of women. We had a program actually with Mary Kay in China, where we were supporting some of the special trades of women to bring them out of this kind of poverty or social economic issues. And we had another program when we were trying to help women with the embroidery. If you can picture this really colorful embroidery and silver trade, that some of the traditional clothing that it's worn in certain areas. So, you know, how can you keep that traditional culture but use it for lifting out people out of their situation and connecting it to what is kind of like a part of the economic system. So one example was here to connect them with the fashion industry and online commerce and trade. So what used to be a little activity at home of doing this embroidery for themselves was then connected to really high kind of fashion industry and then the e-commerce on online trading. So these are just some of the examples of how this can be translated. And I think you will have some other questions as well, but just to mention that, of course, in the Women Innovators program, we have several examples in the Arab states. We have in Central Asia and Eastern Europe as well, where we're focusing on kind of regional acceleration programs that really trying to bring this systemic change forward that I mentioned. And women entrepreneurs across the region are now bringing these innovative solutions back into the process, so they can also kind of feed back and see how to do this differently. And if you allow me, just one little point I wanted to make on what Pamela was saying, it's on STEM, women and STEM. I think that's a perfect example how somehow the connections can be made better, because in general terms, I can say without exaggeration that but maybe with a bit of generalization, that the education system of today is putting out educated people who are actually not fit for the job market. I think that's kind of generally true if you look at what the skill sets universities provide, and then the private sector spends endless resources of retraining them and training them in the way that they can be employed. And this is even more prominent in the STEM sectors, and especially when it comes to women. So I think one of the things we're trying to do is how you bring together this kind of public education sector together with the private sector that has an interest of actually getting qualified people out of the universities, and then bring that together with empowerment of women and the whole economic impact that was mentioned before. So we can zoom in on several things that do bring systemic change. And I really hope that our education system globally will hopefully catch up with the world at some point. And this could be, to me, an obvious candidate where we can do much more together. Thank you.
Okay, so we don't have much time, but I found this interaction very interesting. So let me ask a quick question just to be, again, a little bit more provocative, increase the level of depression. So altogether we can go to a psychotherapist for a common collective session. So Pamela, you mentioned issues, common sense, I mean, fact, maybe not for everyone, but I mean, we know. Both of you mentioned, initiatives undertaken by ITC, UNDP, ITU is undertaking initiative. I'm sure that we pick up an issue that is related to this domain, and there is someone that is doing something. Now, the question is why we don't advance, or we advance at the pace that we would like to do more on that. Why? I mean, we are not slowing down, but why we are not so fast? Okay, so it's a question of we don't talk to each other within the UN, within the community at large. Everyone wants to keep things in his or her own garden. I mean, it's a question of lack of systematicity or lack of a systemic approach. So the power of partnership is there. Everyone is talking about that. SDG 17 is about partnership, but still, there is a certain, at least I feel, being the UN for a long time, a certain, issue exactly about, so what, I mean, just 2 minutes, just a quick reflection, then we close it up and then we have video messages from the others. But I wanted to tap in your brain on that, because I mean, you mentioned initiatives, there are so many, the initiative, why we cannot work together.
Well, if we could solve that, then we wouldn't all be sitting here, because I think there are two issues. One, that there's a systemic problem in that it's what I call chasing the money. Everybody wants to survive as entities, and we don't get enough regular budget. So everybody starts chasing projects. And in chasing the projects, you get money, and then people want to retain the money, or they want to retain their jobs. And so there's a turf battle that takes place across the board. And I've seen it everywhere. And it's very distressing, but you know, it is what it is. So I think partnerships like what we're doing here is actually a great example of how we can, you know, kind of begin to merge and create synergies, and also not overlap, you know, share information, make ourselves more effective, etc. But I think at the root also is a second problem. And for me, the second problem is that we tend to continue to engage as the UN system, as you know, international organizations, in what I call helicopter technical assistance, which is we create things and we enjoy ourselves creating things, and then we tell countries what we're going to do for them. And I've been on the other side, so I know what it's like. And there are two things that happen. One, that there's a lack of absorptive capacity. And so everybody comes at them with something, you know, so you have ITC and UN Women and everybody's throwing something at them. What are we supposed to do with this? One. Two, nobody asked them in the first place. You know, we sit out here deciding, oh, this would be great, or this would.
So not listening to the
There's no discussion. Or if there is, it's very, you know, oh yeah, okay, that sounds good. Let me twist it this way and see if it will work for you. So I think there needs to be what I call embedded technical assistance that is responsive to what is on the ground, and building it in to systems and organizations that already exist there. So that what we are actually doing is working with and through the organizations that have been on the ground, that understand the landscape, that know what will work and what won't, that know the sensitivities. And so, you know, we can, that's my view.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot.
I absolutely and fully agree with Pamela, and maybe just to use a metaphor to describe how this manifests itself. I mean, women don't wake up in the morning that, you know, I want from this organization some education, from my government a little bit of financing, and maybe the private sector will give me a job. They want a solution to their problem. And it's not them who is compartmentalizing the response to this, it's us. We are the ones who, because of our structural setup, we are creating the silos that we keep talking about that we'd like to close. The demand is not siloed. The root organizations that you're referring to and the structures are not siloed. We are siloed, and we are, because of our mandates, our financing structures, we are unable to get out of this. So I think that's unfortunately a structural issue. It's not just the UN, it's a general development, humanitarian, whatever response community that you want to quote. So, you know, it's almost like somebody wants a spaghetti bolognese. They want that.
Italian, yes.
You know, they want the pasta with the sauce and the meat. They don't want the pasta from someone, then tomorrow someone will give you the meat and maybe you get the sauce at some point. So I look at it this way. And I think this is really important. And perhaps just one other little issue in terms of how to deal with that, or what is the problem. I think it's also because we are, I mean, you mentioned partnerships, and I think that's a good way, of course, to describe it. That's how we usually do it. But we're uncomfortable with working with those who are not like us. So that's, I think, another honest response to this. We work, you know, somebody said it at the beginning, we're talking to the converted. Where are the non-converted? Yeah. And how are we trying to reach them? That's one. The second is usually the women we actually work with are those who want to work with us. But there are other women there who we may be a little bit more uncomfortable or not able to reach. And there are many others that could be, you know, labeled with gender or other things. So I think we have to push ourselves and go out there and to work with those who don't want to work with us. Otherwise, we're not going to solve the problem.
Thank you. I I agree, of course. And well, I consider this as really a call for action for everyone, because I think, if we start talking to ourselves and, a little bit more frankly, and go toward give and take rather than saying, wow, this is what I'm doing and that's it, maybe we could change a little bit. By the way, I do a fantastic spaghetti alla bolognese, so maybe that could be a way, to get everyone together around food. Yeah, all right, good. Okay, so we have we stop here because we don't have much time. We had 3 video messages from Vic Van Buren, which is the Assistant Director and Job and Social Protection and Director of Enterprise Department at the ILO. Long title, I'm sure he will have lots to say. Then Sandav Jambo, which is the Assistant Secretary General and the CEO of the UN Global Compact. And then Anita Bhatia, which is the Assistant Secretary General and the Deputy Executive Director of UN Women. Before launching that, I really want to thank you, both of you. Thanks a lot. It was really fun. Thank you. Just a big applause. And then let's go with the videos. Thanks a lot.
Hi, everyone. Let me begin by congratulating the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator partners for the ongoing collaboration as we mark the 3rd anniversary of this partnership. Joining forces with like-minded and results-oriented allies like you enables us to build continuity which is otherwise unattainable or its own. By working together, we can certainly succeed in our collective goal of supporting women entrepreneurs globally. A fellow citizen, a dreamer, once said that freedom cannot be achieved unless women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. These are the words of Nelson Mandela in 2004. Today, those words sound truer than ever. We are failing at delivering the promise of the Agenda 2030 for an inclusive and sustainable development if we continue in this path. It is urgent to make the necessary changes in the way we produce transformation and deliver that transformative agenda. Gender equality and women entrepreneurship is a key driver of social and economic development. It is estimated that women own and manage more than 1/3 of micro, small and medium enterprises, including as self-employed workers. Yet, women tend to be less active globally than men when it comes to startup activity, representing 2 out of every 5 early-stage entrepreneurs that are active globally. Additionally, barriers for women in business still exist everywhere due to unequal access to finance and professional education, as well as participation in global value chains. This global gender gap is even more exacerbated in sectors linked to innovation and technology. For instance, women are underrepresented in strategic sectors for the future of work, such as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This underrepresentation in STEM means women are missing out on the innovation, market-related salaries, and entrepreneurship opportunities in these fields. While in turn, innovation is missing out on diversity. More women in these sectors would fill the gaps of a growing demand for digital specialists. Innovation and digitalization can lead to greater opportunities and can help accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. ILO's 2021 crystallizes the opportunities and the positive impacts of the adoption of digital technologies by MSEs. As per the report, digital technologies, first of all, increase access to information and improve MSEs' ability to communicate. They help companies to trade more easily and across greater distances with both customers and supply chain partners. They offer greater financial opportunities with the addition of digital finance services and open up new pathways towards MSE formalization. They foster entrepreneurship by providing new opportunities for ongoing businesses and offer more opportunities to MSEs to operate more sustainably. At the same time, going digital can present challenges to small businesses, particularly those led by women. Limited access to digital infrastructure, low readiness to adopt digital technologies, technical and soft digital skills shortages, as well as digital security and data protection are among the various challenges that MSEs face when incorporating digitalization. Moreover, women entrepreneurs face additional constraints imposed by their social environment, including restrictive gender role expectations, restricted access to education and finance, and higher non-business limitations on time and mobility. For women entrepreneurs, digital technologies can potentially enhance management practices, improve market intelligence, and create virtual access to regional and global value chains. By supporting women entrepreneurs in the transition to digital, we can ensure they benefit from the full potential of new technology while simultaneously ensuring that digital adoption does not compromise decent work. We must collaborate on fostering a more inclusive environment that enables women to innovate and embrace digitalization. Ensuring a gender lens innovation and digitalization approach is key to not perpetuating gender stereotypes or magnifying the gender gap. To achieve this, all actors involved in the entrepreneurship ecosystem should work on structural measures to promote gender-sensitive innovation, which include investing in education and capacity building, boosting evidence-based research, and making it simpler for women entrepreneurs to launch new businesses, especially in new and non-traditional sectors. The ILO's contribution to evidence-based advocacy under this partnership and beyond sheds light on the gender gaps that women have to overcome to start a business, innovate, and compete in digital spaces. The ILO Women's Entrepreneurship Development Program works to address some of these barriers with holistic intervention approaches and models. At the policy level, the ILO WEA has developed a framework to evaluate the conditions affecting women's entrepreneurship at the country level. The Women's Entrepreneurship Development Assessment is a research tool that proposes 6 key framework conditions for women entrepreneurship development, along with a thorough methodology for gathering and combining data into an actionable report. In it, we look at the access to information and communication technologies, and our findings corroborate what has already been shared. There are few and sparse programs specifically aimed at ensuring proper access and control over ICTs. Women's access to technology may be improving, though their more limited exposure to its varied uses means technology's potential to support enterprise creation, consolidation, and growth remains limited. By assessing these framework conditions, including ICTs, the ILC support national stakeholders to identify targeted and strategic recommendations that can unleash the potential of women entrepreneurs to generate decent jobs for themselves and others. Partnerships such as the Women Entrepreneurship Accelerator, with specialized agencies coming together to align efforts, can deliver real transformative change. All the WEA partners are carrying out outstanding work in paving the way for more inclusive entrepreneurship environment with innovation at its core. This includes ITU for the launch of their innovation challenges, the ITC for their cutting-edge online training programs, and UN Women and UNGC for pushing the thinking and actions around gender-responsive public procurement. I commend you all for the impressive work done so far as part of this vital partnership. Innovation is the catalyst for human growth. It is about new ideas and ways of working. We must see gender-inclusive innovation as an immense opportunity for development and take action to collectively find solutions that meet the needs of women and ensure that not a single one is left behind. The empowerment of women is not just good for business, it benefits whole societies. Women are powerful agents of change. I thank you.
Okay, just let's realign a bit. This is still the informal chat, so let's be informal. Loli, what you wanted to say? you asked me to say something, I didn't get it.
That everyone is welcome here outside. You
Okay.
can get your coffee and water, some refreshments. We will put another 2 videos that we are missing, but very short videos. So then you can please come bring your coffee, and then we continue with the second and the third session. Thank you.
Okay, so you're saying that you can get coffees while we project the videos, right? Okay, so can we get out from, yes, that's good. So video will be projected, and then, thank you. And then we carry on. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to both of you. It was really nice.
Nice discussion.
Yeah, we should do this
Thank you.
more often.
Excellencies, business leaders, distinguished guests, it is a pleasure to join this crucial discussion on supporting women entrepreneurs. First, my sincere thanks to ITU for hosting and to my colleagues at the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator for your commitment to this important issue. In the recent decades, we've made significant strides towards gender equality, including progress in the private sector. Women's participation has increased in leadership, and businesses have proven essential in driving economic and financial performance worldwide. However, as we all know, businesses are facing unprecedented global crises. Conflicts are raging around the globe. Countries are struggling to build back from the COVID-19 pandemic while still dealing with new infections. Climate change is causing loss, damage, and destruction. This array of headwinds, including inflation, the energy crisis, food crisis, and conflict, are upending the global economic outlook. And women are disproportionately impacted by the economic fallout from all of these crises. This is simply because women are more likely than men to own micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, mostly in the informal sector. They are far more likely to shoulder the burden of unpaid work, and they're less likely to have access to assets, property, and financial services. But we all know that despite these challenges, women business owners hold great potential for advancing inclusive and sustainable development. Because when women succeed, they invest in their families and their communities. They contribute to poverty reduction, education, and improved nutrition. They empower other women and girls, and they build more equitable societies. The Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, a partnership between 6 UN agencies, is focused on empowering 5 million women entrepreneurs by 2030. Not only does this coalition directly support women entrepreneurs, it also focuses on how to better position these women as meaningful participants in global supply chains through gender-responsive procurement. The UN Global Compact provides guidance for gender-responsive procurement for companies of all sizes through our recently published toolkit, applying a gender lens to sustainable procurement. Advancing gender equality in supply chains is not only the right thing to do, it is also a smart business strategy. Diversifying a company's supply pool contributes to increased revenue, increased innovation and adaptability, and an overall lowered business risk. So dear friends, I'd like to personally invite all women business owners, and all businesses indeed, to adopt gender-responsive procurement strategies and ensure that your companies actively drive gender equality across your supply chains. We need women's skills, women's talent, and women's leadership to solve the world's biggest challenges, from tackling climate change to rebuilding economies. And if we are to achieve a more inclusive and sustainable world, we must tap into the full potential of women entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure to address you today on an important topic. Women's entrepreneurship development, economic prosperity, and innovation are inextricably linked and deliver major development dividends. Yet, this role remains largely unrecognized. It is particularly relevant now as we prepare for the upcoming Commission on the Status of Women, which will have innovation as a key theme. As we all know, gender equality lies at the heart of development, and investing in women is one of the smartest and most effective ways for the world to use limited resources. We also know that women-owned businesses play a crucial role in economic development. They generate employment, boost innovation, provide income for their families, and employment for their communities. And we also know that almost half of women entrepreneurs report being driven by the desire to contribute to a greater social good. And we see this in how many women do business. This is why women's entrepreneurship can actually be a powerful contributor to the achievement of SDG 5. However, while the number of women operating their own businesses is increasing globally, women continue to face significant obstacles in doing so. They face legal, financial, and market barriers that constrain their entrepreneurial success. Access to capital is, in fact, one of the most cited barriers to the growth of women entrepreneurship globally. And this is not because women entrepreneurs are inherently more risky borrowers than men. It is rather because they are constrained by gender-based norms and unconscious bias, which prevents them from getting as much capital as their male counterparts, and because of stereotyped ideas of women's business skills and their role in society. To illustrate with just one example, we know that venture capital funding for climate-related businesses is currently growing 5 times faster than overall venture capital funding. And this shows us that there is a high demand for capital in this area of entrepreneurship. Yet, we know that women-led startups in this sector in 2020, for example, received just 2.3% of VC funding. This reflects in part the lack of equality in decision-making in venture capital. Venture capital is a male-dominated business. 88% of decision makers in venture capital firms are men, and many venture capital firms lack even a single female partner. We also know that women entrepreneurs have to take on burdens that male entrepreneurs do not, because of the care burden that falls on women. Homework, schooling, domestic responsibilities, elder care responsibilities fall on women much more than they do on their male entrepreneur counterparts. This double burden obviously reduces productivity and can also take a toll on women's health and their stress levels. So it is crystal clear that we need to change the way we do business so that we are enabling more women entrepreneurs to do more business. So I call on all financial institutions and financial service providers to create products and services that fulfill the needs of women-owned businesses. We need desperately to create a more gender-inclusive financial system, one that is geared towards the particular needs of women entrepreneurs. This also means paying more attention to digital solutions and to have more women in leadership roles and in decision-making positions in financial institutions and venture capital funds. It is important to drive gender parity, not just in those who offer capital, but also those who are working on innovation. So we must target incubators and accelerators so that they are providing mentoring, resources, networking opportunities, and of course, access to capital for women entrepreneurs. It is also important to invest in training programs that improve access for women entrepreneurs, to invest in inclusive digital payment systems and inclusive infrastructures that allow women to access opportunities. We know that the future of education, of work, of trade, and delivery of public services and private services is increasingly digital. So we need to provide solutions to women entrepreneurs so that they can build skills, capacities, and knowledge to effectively manage their businesses and gain access to new markets in an increasingly digital world. We all have a collective responsibility and interest to ensure opportunity for all in women and to reshape innovation ecosystems to enable women to participate more fully. which is why I'm very pleased to share with you that 6 United Nations agencies have joined forces through the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator to provide solutions and to strengthen business ecosystems for women-led businesses. So today I call on all partners to join us and to find ways in which you can contribute to this agenda, including your participation at next year's crucial Commission on the Status of Women. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, everyone. Maybe we can start taking our seats so we can kick off the next bit of the session. Hope everyone's well refreshed with some water, some tea, some coffee, some refreshments. Maybe we give 1 more minute for colleagues to return back with your beverages. Yes.
For some reason, it won't open.
So if we could all please take our seats so we can kick off this next session. Hope everyone's feeling a bit refreshed. Thank you all so much for coming back to the second session of our WEA celebration. This session will present the WEA solutions to advance women entrepreneurship. For this, we have the pleasure to welcome Virginia Rose Losada from the International Labour Organization, Virginia, right here with us, and also Anna Marie from the ITC, from the International Trade Center. We also have a video that will play at the end from UNGC, that's Josely's video. With them, we'll hear a bit about gender responsive procurement, entrepreneurship development policy recommendations, and the exciting entrepreneurship certificate program. So to kick off with, I'm going to now welcome Virginia to please share with us some of the work of the ILO. She's the Global Coordinator of Women's Entrepreneurship Development at the SME unit there. So please, over to you, Virginia.
Thank you so much. I always try and do these things. Not sure if I can share. Yes, I can. All right, well, good afternoon, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I think you've heard we've heard some really great stuff in the panel right before us, right? In terms of how do we get innovation in women's entrepreneurship development? I'm actually really thrilled to finally get to meet my colleagues in crime with the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator. I joined the partnership about 2 years ago, and so everything has been online. And so when the idea of doing something in person came up, it was just too good to be true. So I'm actually, we only just met Anna Marie and myself physically, and it's always interesting to see, to kind of relate, right? So anyway, so my name is Virginia Rose Losada, and I work for the International Labour Organization. And for those of you who don't know, the ILO is the oldest standing UN agency. We were created in 1919 after the First World War, and with the idea that through work came peace. We are also a tripartite organization, meaning that we are represented by governments, by workers and employer organizations. And why that is important, because that is how we promote policies and programs and how we work. The ILO has had a program on women's entrepreneurship development since the early 2000s. We were given a mandate by our governing body, and we are given the mandate on 3 levels: on creating the enabling environment for women's entrepreneurship development, on building the capacity of our constituents and other service providers to support women's entrepreneurship development, and then finally to develop and create tools and approaches that support women's entrepreneurship development. Now, you would have heard in the last video, that was my director of the department, that was my boss, talking to you about the ILO's framework conditions for women's entrepreneurship development. And so that framework condition, we have been fine-tuning over the last 15 years, and it's been a collaboration with several UN agencies and also the African Development Bank. Now, the framework conditions, what we try to have is a picture of the situation of women's entrepreneurship development in a country. And that allows us as the ILO to understand the situation, but even more importantly, our constituents and service providers. And so what does the framework conditions look at? First of all, it looks at the legal and regulatory framework. Second of all, it looks at the effective policy and leadership within women's entrepreneurship development. What does that mean? That means, as we all know, in women's entrepreneurship development, this falls across so many ministries, right? We talk about the Ministry of Industry, of Economy, Women's Affairs, and it depends on, in the country, who is the lead, that it's actually how we approach a lot women's entrepreneurship development. So we try and we look and see at the country level, what is that exactly? What is that coordination? And then we look at things that are very dear to our hearts, and I think many of us work on, which is that access to gender sensitive financial services and the non-financial or the business development services. So what is the kind of trainings and the kind of supports that are given to women's entrepreneurship? And then we look at the access to markets and technology. And this is here where today's session, makes a lot of sense. And we look at how women are accessing the use of technology, but also what kind of use of technology they're making. And what we see often also is how the service providers themselves make use of technology. And what we've been finding, for example, in recent research we've been carrying out is that very, very rarely, if to say never, do the service providers actually think of what are the technologies that the women themselves are using to adapt their technologies when they go digital. So there you see that there's another gap in terms of how we're reaching out to women entrepreneurs. And the last one is something that is very dear to the ILO's heart. As I said, we are a tripartite organization where social dialogue is really in our blood. And so looking at the representation of women entrepreneurs and their participation in policy dialogue is key aspect to support women's entrepreneurship development. How do we do that? And I'm just going to very quickly say and this is something that is also very dear to our hearts, is that we conduct desk research as usual. We will do key informant interviews with key stakeholders, but then we will also, and that was something that grew with us as time went by, hearing directly from the women. We can paint a beautiful picture, but then how is it being lived and experienced by the women entrepreneurs was key to us. And so we took that on to make those assessments. Now, very quickly, I'm not going to go into much detail, but those assessments, we do something that is very visual. Why do we do something very visual? Because it's a way of igniting change, right? When you see something, and I'll show you what we mean by very visual, those kinds of diagrams, and you can kind of see where, in what sectors and what conditions and subconditions our countries maybe not developed enough, or they haven't done enough, or there's still things to improve on. And then from there, that really triggers a discussion around what can we do in terms of changes. And here it's besides how we undertake the studies, it's that we make sure that in our WEA assessments, we have a working group that follows that. And that working group is comprised of members of our constituents, so members of government, of the employers, of women entrepreneurs associations, of service providers, of academia. And they're the ones who are going to make sure that what we are finding makes sense, but then also they are ultimately responsible, right, for making any possible action plans that can be delivered. And so that is what we do within the ILO in terms of women's entrepreneurship development at that level. Now, within the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator Partnership that brings us here today, what we've been doing have been two things. First of all, we've been developing more research, so undertaking a WEA assessment in a specific country, and that was Mexico. And what we wanted to do in Mexico was try to see how we could adapt this methodology within specific sectors. And there we went into the sectors of industry and commerce. And it was also the first time we were doing a WEA assessment in times of COVID. So it was the first time that we were able to get some indication of what was the impact of COVID during that time, for the women entrepreneurs. And that was the first area, right? So it was gathering that information. But then we also did work in Brazil, and that was at a different level. That was once you have a WEA assessment, or once you have information, you understand the situation, what can we do with partners to trigger change? And I think Pamela was saying something along those lines, right? Of you can have it, but how do you make change? And there we were testing different possibilities of getting that momentum within a state. It was actually done a WEA assessment within Mato Grosso, and it was to see how we could mobilize the actors in the ecosystem. And so there we were testing things like doing capacity building. We were doing national campaigns to change perspectives around women entrepreneurs. But it was also in terms of getting the employer organizations to take on the role of women entrepreneurship development, being there at the forefront. And the Brazilian work that we did also brought, we were able to kind of move it up to the regional level. By that, we mean we brought in employer organizations and women entrepreneurs associations from other countries in Latin America, namely Costa Rica, Chile, Uruguay, and they shared their results on the WEA assessments and their paths to improving their the conditions for women's entrepreneurship development. And so by pushing that agenda at a regional level, we're also adding additional, let me say, pressure points to support that change at the policy level in women's entrepreneurship development. So that has been the work that we've been doing in the last year with the support of women's entrepreneurship, the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator. Now, what we want to do moving forward, what we want to do is to continue building on these achievements. We wish to further deepen and expand the research and the policy agenda in women's entrepreneurship development. We'd be, for example, thrilled to collaborate as ITU with a new member in terms of that angle of digitalization. We have a little bit in those WEA assessments, but how can we deepen that knowledge? At the other side, an element that is dear to the ILO's heart currently is actually maternity protection and access to care. And so here we're trying to explore how we can more systematically include maternity protection and access to childcare services. This has been something that we've been looking at, and women entrepreneurs themselves see that the motherhood employment penalty is really impacting their ability to start and grow sustainable businesses and even decide when they want to have children and how many. In many countries, this is compounded by the fact that women entrepreneurs are excluded from childcare related policies or struggle to access affordable and quality childcare services. So that is an area that we want to push forward in the moving years. In addition, we want to look at the sectors of value chain development. We see how there are more and more organizations working on value chain development, but how do we ensure a gender inclusive service value chain development? So those are just a few areas that we hope to collaborate further with. And with that, I really look forward to the years to come within the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator. I also want to remind ourselves that we are within the 16 days of activism to fight against gender-based violence. And this year, it's really about that collective voice, that push for women's organizations, right? And I just wanted to also remind that Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, women's entrepreneurship organizations have a big role to play in there. And that is an area that we also promote and that we support. And with this, I thank you so much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions and look forward to talking to you more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's really incredible to hear about all these achievements that have happened in such a short space of time. And of course, it's very exciting to see a bit about where we could even go further. Now I'm going to hand over to Anna Marie, the Partnerships and Program Manager of She Trades at the ITC on the Certificate Program of Entrepreneurship. Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, online, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I do hope you still have a bit of stamina and energy and attention to follow me here after so many videos, after so many presentations. I think the discussions were great, but please, I don't want to take much time between you and the cocktail and the innovation launch. So that will be fast, but bear with me, bear with me. I come from the International Trade Center, and my boss was speaking here right before. And I think gatherings like this, they really motivate us to think in more inspirational and impactful ways. So I was just going down, the floors with her, and we were just thinking about why not thinking about this Spaghetti Bolognese initiative, where basically we bring all these different UN agencies around the table with ministers, with gender ministers, to talk about health, led by WHO, about trade, led by ITC, about digital skills, led by ITU, and so on and so forth. So I think these are the moments where we need to be discussing. And I think you guys can also, speak amongst yourselves as well. And please come talk to me later if you have any questions. So I come from the ITC. We are 50% United Nations. We are 50% World Trade Organization. What we try to do, we try to help small businesses increase their competitiveness, and then we connect them to markets, international markets. And we work at different levels. We work with policymakers. We help them understand how to mainstream gender at their national policies, but also at the regional level. We help women's business associations to have a voice, to provide policy recommendations to the FCFTA regulators and policymakers right now. And we also work at the WTO by, animating those discussions around trade and gender. But we also work with the ecosystem on the ground, what we call chambers of commerce, business support organizations, women's business associations, because they have amazing products and services. I think my executive director was saying that we need to work with organizations on the ground that know the reality on the ground. But what we do at ITC, we help them understand the needs of women-led businesses, of women entrepreneurs. They need to have tailored services and products for women entrepreneurs. And then, of course, we also work directly with the women-led businesses, women entrepreneurs, women-led cooperatives. And this is the bread and butter of what ITC does. Capacity building on packaging, standards, quality. If they're in the coffee sector, we help them understand how to calculate their production cost and so on. So this is what we do. And on the other side of the coin, we also work with market players. I'm talking about the likes of Google. I'm talking about the likes of Olam, Nestle. So they understand the importance of sourcing from women entrepreneurs. So this is basically what we do. Next, colleagues. Okay, and I was talking about policy, and I don't know if there are some representatives of missions here. I don't know your backgrounds, but policy is very important, and under the systematic change that I think our colleague from UNDP, Aji, was saying, right? So we launched this tool, which is quite well known, called She Trades Outlook. And the idea here is to provide a landscape on how a country is doing in terms of supporting women to trade. So we analyze fresh data. So 80% of the data that is available on this tool, on She Trades Outlook, you can Google, is new. So you'll not find anywhere else. So we have analyzed the data across 6 different dimensions. So we analyze how a country is doing in terms of trade policy and how is supporting women under trade policy. How is the business environment for women to trade? The 3rd dimension is how is the legal and regulatory framework? Are there barriers for women to trade that are literally written on the law? Number 4, are there any programs that are supporting women to have better skills to trade? Number 5, are the governments actually creating programs on access to finance? And number 6, how is work in society? So I really invite you to check that out. Next, please. Okay, and then as you might know, we are a UN agency, right? So we do have these big projects, sector specific in IT, textiles and garments and so on in different countries, in Sierra Leone, going to Kenya or in Vietnam and so on. But what we realize is that we as ITC UN, we have a lot of support in working in least developed countries or developing countries that are priority for the United Nations. But the world is much bigger than that as well, right? So we have created what we call our gender hubs, our She Trades hubs. And these are basically countries that come to us and say, look, Anna, we want to localize what She Trades, what your gender unit is doing at the country level. So we have launched 12 different hubs, and these are the countries that you can see on the screen. So if you come from any of these geographies, we have teams on the ground. These are led by ministries of trade or by chambers of commerce, basically getting our methodology in terms of training, building the competitiveness of women entrepreneurs, and then linking them to market opportunities and so on. E-commerce, etc. And you can get to know more or even invite your networks of SMEs to be part of this. So this was the way that we found to make sure that our work is really global. And we do not fund these funds. These are these hubs. These are self-funded institutions, localized. We just provide the methodology and the know-how. Yeah, next. And as we are speaking and we are here at the ITU, so I must talk about digital, right? But no, but we know that, of course, as Pamela said, you know, the SMEs that were online, they had much higher chances to survive than the ones that are just trading offline. And we know this for many, many years. So we launched shetrades.com is our one-stop shop platform. What we do, We help women entrepreneurs to have a place to make their businesses visible to the market, right? E-commerce is very good, but some small businesses or self-employed women, they don't have the skills to run a website. Sometimes they don't understand even how to do, they cannot pay someone to do that. So this is a place where women entrepreneurs can really make their business visible. They can post pictures, they can tell in which sectors they are, what are their production capacity, which certification they have, and so on. And then buyers that hopefully know about the importance of supply diversity, for example, they can go there and they can try to find potential women suppliers to diversify their supplier databases. And under the same platform, and again, oh, I forgot to mention, this is a United Nations public good, so it's free of charge, right? And under the same platform, we have our virtual learning academy, and we literally got our more than 15 years of knowledge working with SMEs, and we have 100 courses right now. It could be, you can take them on desktop or on your phones, because we realize that women entrepreneurs, they are busy trying to survive, right? So they don't have sometimes 2 weeks, 1 month to be able to take in a course on Coursera, for example. So you may find those courses online there on global value chains, design a strategy for success, but there are different versions of gamified courses that are adapted to the realities of entrepreneurs. So there are some that you can take on the phone before going to bed. Is a 2-hour course, and at the end, you really get understanding on a specific topic. So, and this learning academy is backed up by a community. So if you're a student, you can be asking, other peers what they're learning, what they're not learning, and there's a tutor. Liz here is the tutor from one of our Access to Finance courses, and you can ask questions at any time. So I think it's a good way to have this one-on-one relationship with our experts. Next. Yeah, so I just want to, before getting to the WEA conversation, we also help bridge the financial gender gap that we are talking a lot. And then now you might be asking me why, ITC, which is a trade-related agency, is caring about finance. It's just because we ask businesses led by men, what is the top one barrier for men to trade? They said access to markets. We don't know where the buyers are. And then we ask women-led businesses, and they say that the top one barrier is always the same during the past 10 years, access to finance. So organically, we grew this network of financiers that want to do gender lens investing, that want to support women entrepreneurs. So we are just bridging that gap. We have a network of hundreds of thousands of women entrepreneurs. We know their financial needs, and we know the requirements of capital providers. So if you go to the next slide, because I just received a note that I need to rush. You can get to know more and scan our QR code, because this is where basically we are matchmaking. We are really supporting and disbursing loans with the help of financiers to the hands of women entrepreneurs. We are talking about $5 million per year in the hands of women entrepreneurs. Next, please. I think I'll skip that one. And we can continue. And as Pamela was saying, now what we are doing, we're scaling up our game. So now we'll be also working with young women, with small scale traders, with workers, and that's why the partnership with WEA makes sense for us. Under this past 1.5 years, we have developed 7 entrepreneurship certificate programs that are available on shetrades.com. We have spent quite a bit of time recording 200 videos, and these trainings, they are amazing. I must say, it's one of our top-notch, really, if you want to open a business or if you want to improve what you are doing. It has 7 different steps, from deciding whether the entrepreneurship is the right way for you, because sometimes we believe it is, but we just do not have the personality for that, to the ideation of the business, to how to fundraise for it. So I really encourage you to have a look at this, and at the end you get an official United Nations certificate signed by our executive director. This is available in English, French, and Spanish, and I can give you the link later. Next, please. We also spent quite a bit of time last year doing workshops on key aspects of trade, e-commerce, competitiveness, and market access in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and India, and we'll continue doing that. If you come from, these countries, please let's talk after the meeting. Next. And what we are planning to do, so the entrepreneurship certificate program will be available in Arabic, in Mandarin, and in Portuguese as well. And of course, together with UN Global Compact, we want to increase gender responsive procurement. Maybe let's move to the next slide already. And sorry for, stepping and going so fast, but I understand that the team needs to wrap up. Why this is so important for us, there are many companies, big companies, that they are very proud of saying that they have strong supply diversity commitments and programs. I must tell you that just like some policies are not being operational in some countries from the government side, the same happens on the private sector side. So right now we are running a pilot in Indonesia with Unilever. They just came to us saying, listen, we have approximately $300 million to spend in products and services, to procure in products and services from women-led businesses. We don't know where these women are. The ones that we believe that could be our suppliers, sometimes they don't meet certification and standards criteria. Can you please help, right? So this is what we are doing in Indonesia right now. We have a pipeline. We're generating this pipeline of women-led businesses to become potential suppliers for Unilever. And we aim to do this, and we're already doing with other companies as well. This was one example, but we want to bring this to WEA and to the signatories of the UN Global Compact. Next. And with my last slide, I just mentioned that that we have under ITC She Trades Invest, we are matchmaking capital providers with women-led businesses. We aim to also bring this to all the beneficiaries on the WEA under UN agencies. We have the methodology, we have the network of capital providers. We can scale that up under this partnership. With that, I thank you so much, and over to you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The work that you shared, especially on the entrepreneurship certificate program, sounds extremely interesting. I can't wait to share it with the amazing young entrepreneurs that we have in our Generation Connect program here at the ITU. I think next we have online joining us live, Joyce Lee from the UN Global Compact to share with us. Joyce Lee, are you here with us? If so, the floor is yours.
I am. Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, and evening to everyone online and in person. I'm happy to be here today. My name is Jocelyn Chu, and I work at UN Women. I'm happy to be here today to celebrate WEA's 3rd anniversary. So first, I'll start off by just thanking Mary Kay for their support of WEA. We've been able to do great work together thus far, and we are very much looking forward to our continued successful cooperation, along with our partners whom you've heard speak today, UNDP, ILO, ITC, ITU, and UNGC. So on that note, and I know we are running a bit behind and you've been listening to speakers for a while now, I'll just be really quick today and highlight the work that UN Women has done on gender responsive procurement. And this is something that my colleague Anna Mori touched upon as well. So gender responsive procurement is a key strategy that really takes a holistic and systems approach to advance women's economic empowerment. So for those unfamiliar with the term, it means sourcing from women-owned and women-led enterprises, as well as gender-responsive businesses. So in other words, gender-responsive procurement leverages the buying power of governments, companies, and other organizations for gender equality. And this is important because globally, about 1 in 3 businesses are owned by women, but women only win an estimated 1% of the procurement spend of large corporations. Now, recognizing this huge potential in procurement, we created a few products to promote gender responsive procurement in contribution to WEA. So first, UN Women created an advocacy tool that highlights the business case for gender responsive procurement, and it's called Procurement's Strategic Value: Why Gender Responsive Procurement makes business sense. And I'll be happy to share the link to this after my remarks. Now, as part of this research, we engaged over 350 stakeholders with a focus on the private sector, and we distilled 6 key benefits of gender responsive procurement. And I won't go into that now because that will be featured in a video shortly. The publication also features case studies on what companies are doing and what they're seeing as a result of more inclusive procurement practices. And so to pique your interest a little bit today and to highlight the report, I'll just give an example now of Gulf African Bank. And they found that before taking on GRP, their women's banking segment wasn't profitable. But actually, after increasing spend in procurement with women-owned businesses, the segment now contributes to about 25% of its assets and liabilities. So through this example, we see that gender responsive procurement could actually boost and increase revenue. I'll just quickly highlight another case study as well, that from Bristol Myers Squibb during the pandemic. They made a mad scramble for PPE, just like everyone else in the world, at the start of 2020. And in the end, it was actually their efforts in supplier diversity that allowed them to find the PPE necessary, so the personal protective equipment necessary to continue their operations in the first half of that year. Now, a second product on gender responsive procurement I'll highlight today is a toolkit by the UN Global Compact in collaboration with us here at UN Women, called Applying a Gender Lens to Sustainable Procurement. And this toolkit is based on the report Procurement Strategic Value that I just highlighted. The toolkit is a new practical guide on how to support the private sector in advancing gender equality and promoting non-discrimination through their procurement decisions. And we'd be happy to share that link with you as well later. And then a final product that I'd like to share with you all today is by UNGC Global Compact, again in collaboration with UN Women and WEA. And it's a video highlighting gender responsive procurement, and we're delighted to share that with you today. So thank you everyone for your attention, and now over to the video.
Every day, businesses across the world make decisions on who to purchase goods and services from. What if those companies use their purchasing power to advance gender equality through gender-responsive procurement? Gender-responsive procurement, or GRP, means sourcing from women-owned businesses as well as from gender-responsive businesses. And not just in the name of increased gender equality, but in the name of good business too. UN Women's report, Procurement Strategic Value, Why Gender-Responsive Procurement Makes Business Sense, shows revenues increase as procurement spend is lowered. Brand reputation can be enhanced at the same time as increasing innovation and adaptability, lowering risk, and improving service delivery. Finally, GRP can advance economic development and inclusive growth for all. Sustainable Development Goal 5 calls for all stakeholders, including business, to work collectively to remove barriers to women's empowerment and achieve gender equality by 2030. So, if you're in charge of procurement, you could ask these simple questions. Are my suppliers committed to gender equality? Have they signed the Women's Empowerment Principles founded by the UN Global Compact and UN Women? Do they have policies and practices in place to address sexual harassment and gender-based violence? Do women workers face pregnancy and/or maternity discrimination? Is there a gender pay gap? And are the specific health and safety concerns of women workers addressed? To learn more about adopting gender-responsive procurement practices, visit unglobalcompact.org/gender.
Thank you so much to Joycelyn for that video. And I really apologize for having to cut the time short. I'm sure we all would love to hear more. And that's why I highly encourage everyone, when we get to go out to the cocktail soon, please let's continue these conversations. I think it's impossible to condense all the amazing work that we're doing on women in entrepreneurship into 10 minutes. So please let's keep the conversation going during the cocktail and even beyond, so that we can continue to collaborate and not work in silos, as was said by an earlier speaker. So now is our third and final session for today, and it's an exciting announcement from us at the ITU to the WEA community, and we hope you will all help us promote this exciting challenge in the next few weeks. So for this, I'm going to invite my wonderful colleague, Victoria Masso from the Digital Innovation Ecosystem team. So come over, Victoria. Yeah. Yes, why not? Absolutely. And we'll hand over to you. And again, thank you so much, Virginia. Thank you so much to Anna and Joycelyn online. Yes.
Hello. Oh, hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I have some good news and some bad news. Do you want to hear the bad news first? I'm the only one in between, the only person between you and the cocktails. That's the bad news. The good news is that we're, as it was said, we're going to be launching today our, let's see if we have the slides up. Yep. So I'm very excited to announce that today we're launching our Women Entrepreneurship Accelerator Digital Innovation Challenge, which you will see at some point on the screen. Okay, so I'll just start talking a little bit about it. This challenge is in collaboration with the Women Entrepreneurship Accelerator and the organizations, as well as with Mary Kay and ITU. Work with ITU. And so you know a little bit about what a digital innovation challenge is. It's basically a platform where we have stakeholders from an ecosystem to be able to present their ideas, their research, their projects, and then we empower them for them to transform the communities into thriving digital societies. Unfortunately, you cannot see the pictures, but we had really nice pictures that you can Google online. We have done since 2016 about over 20 challenges, and we have impacted around over 300 participants. And this is a project that is very dear to me because I have seen the change, as well as my team, of those participants and in their communities. Yeah, I think it's fine if we put it just like that. Yeah. All right, great. So if we go to the next slide. Go down. Down now. So I already told you all of this. There. Okay. The objective of this challenge specifically is to build private and inclusive digital innovation ecosystems that empower women entrepreneurs. That's why we're here today. And so we are supporting digital innovations from women-owned companies, initiatives that have at least one female founder. And then that as well, they're working towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Next one. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this part because we already talked about this throughout the day, and it was very, very well presented. But as you know, entrepreneurship is a male-dominated industry, and women, depending on where you are, they still face legal, financial, and market inequalities. This has been covered very, very thoroughly. But also, it has been covered very thoroughly that women entrepreneurs do contribute to economic growth and poverty reduction worldwide. And we need women to be on the table discussing when technologies are being created, when digital innovations are being created. So for us and this challenge, it is crucial for us to maximize the impact that women entrepreneurship have and be able to foster those digital ecosystems equal, that are gender equal. So what happens with this? The winners of the challenge get to have an award, and this award doesn't happen by chance. The award is meant to be able to help those initiatives, those organizations to develop their proposals, their projects, and we provide them with capacity building training in the form of a boot camp. They also have access to a mentorship scheme and access to a network of change makers where other previous winners are, as well as policymakers, private sector, various different change makers. And also they will be published in a best practice report, and they will have the possibility to attend to the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. And like I said, this award is not by chance. We focus on being able to help those initiatives to be sustainable. As we said various times, innovation is a systems issue. And so what we do is that we train them and we give them a set of tools to be able to deal with the uncertainty that comes from balancing act that come from assessing, is this the right opportunity? Is my ecosystem supporting me? Do I have a thriving ecosystem? Do I have the right resources? And do I have the right team? And being able to manage those three things allows them to have a sustainable initiative. And that's the way that we support them throughout the challenge. If you go to the next one, practically, how does this look like? Well, today the website is up, so please do share it with your network, your teams, and invite women or organizations and projects that at least have one female founder in the leadership team to apply. And then the applications are going to be closing on the 20th of January. And so there will be a pre-selection of initiatives that will go then to a pitch competition, and we will select the winners. These winners then are going to go through a capacity building bootcamp, which is where we give them the tools that will allow them to assess their initiative and be able to think about it differently, because that's what we need to do. We need to think differently, to do things differently. And then they'll be supported afterwards with a mentorship program. They'll be matched with a mentor that will support them to achieve their goals, to later then go to having a best practice report published. And afterwards, they graduate and become part of the alumni. All of this is supported, all of this body is supported by what we call the Digital Innovation Ecosystem Network, which is they become part of it. And in there, like I mentioned, they find various change makers, and they have been great connections that have been happened through that. And I want to make it a bit more tangible, show you a video of a few of our female previous winners, female funders, talking a little bit, it's very, very short, about their experience.
Hi, I'm Sarah and I run Ampersand Play, and we design educational toy kits for displaced children out of school. I was part of the 2019 challenge and I won the Digital Changemaker Award, and it was a great experience. I got to learn with and from other entrepreneurs and how we can use tech for good. I'm excited to see all you apply to the Women Entrepreneurship Accelerator, and I think it's a great opportunity to meet and learn from each other, and a good support system as well.
Hello, I am Tania Rosas, the co-founder of Origin Learning Fund. Our project was OLAP App, Digital Education from Colombia to Nigeria, and we won the ITU Digital Challenge in 2022. Our experience was amazing. We were able to partner up with 3 local-based organizations across the country, impacting more than 1,000 young students. So I would suggest to all female founders out there to apply to this program. I know that we have to face many different types of challenges to actually access to a bigger market. So with this, you will have support and training so that you are able to actually access to a bigger market and increase your impact. So best of luck.
Hi, I am Achanila, founder, managing director, Women in Digital. In 2020, I have won the ITU Digital Innovation Challenge, and my category was Women in Technology. And my project was empowering women in tech and make them financially empowered through mobile data and internet. We learned a lot of things from this competition because we was going through a mentoring process, and I believe the women, those who want to prove themselves or validated their projects, they should apply this competition because it's a learning and sharing and networking competition. So you can learn lots of things and you can get international access where you can explore your projects and other projects also. So please do apply. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Nilima Dhingra. I work for Dimagi out of India. We are one of the fortunate winners of Global South COVID-19 Digital Innovation Challenge launched by ITU in June 2021. I must admit that the mentorship and guidance provided by ITU during the program really helped us in framing the go-to-market strategy for our nutrition solution. We are now able to implement a pilot project of Dimagi Nutrition Solution in Ivory Coast, and soon we'll be able to impact many lives and improve the nutrition indicators of children. I was able to connect with the like-minded people during Global South-South Development Expo 2022 in Thailand and learn best practices from many organizations. I would want to thank ITU for this opportunity and motivate you all women to come forward and participate in the upcoming challenge and get that learning experience. Thanks for listening and looking forward to seeing you soon in the upcoming challenge.
Great. And these are just a few. We've seen them expand, grow, pivot, and the success stories are just incredible. So I highly recommend you to share it and apply and help us build ecosystems that are more gender inclusive. And now we go back quickly to the slides. Yeah, I'll give my colleague Jacqueline the floor.
All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Jacqueline Mukarkund. Generation Connect Youth Informal. I'm here for IT study group, but also I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm 24 years old. I have a startup called WESTZone. We are into urban mining, specifically focusing on electronic waste we have in our house, everywhere we are. Yes, as you can see, our mission is to provide customers, manufacturers, and recyclers with amazing traceability services by helping them to generate value addition to this electronic waste we have in our offices and all over in our homes. So our vision is to, from trash to cash, to give value to this electronic waste, but also to create waste-free world since we are facing climate change currently. Next. I was being taught to talk about the women in business, specifically why they need support. And one thing came in my mind. I remember a story of my mom. So my parents separated when I was 1 year old. And one of the story my mom told, it was that the life was so hard to the point that she was a street vendor. She was selling mangoes and avocados on the street. She would carry us, me with 1 year old baby and my brother who was 5 year old, all in the street to be able to find the food of the day. And that's really struck me how women are really heroes, right? Because one of her aim is to see us growing up and become who we are right now. And I do really appreciate that. So if we are talking about women entrepreneurs, sometimes we forget that most of women are actually doing smaller businesses. They're not able to have these big companies we see all over the world, Microsoft or these popular popping companies. They are running small business, and that's why you find that the statistics says that female entrepreneurs make up to 43% of all global entrepreneurs. The percentage is very high, but are they in larger company business? No, they're still as a smaller business. They're not able to grow
Why? Because of so many different challenges. And when you see in sub-Saharan Africa, 89, according to WEA Forum, I have statistics I got from WEA Forum and UN Women, it says that in sub-Saharan Africa, 89% of women are in informal sectors. Between 80 million to 10 million, they have small and medium-sized enterprises. And also, one of the challenges they highly face as informal sectors businesses, they lack finances. There is legal inequalities because once you're going to ask a bank for a loan, show us the property, and most of the property are in the name of the husband. And once they are separated, there is chaos and so many things happening. That makes them not being able to have access to finance. And there is also instruction with owning and managing properties, as we know from our culture, specifically, let me speak in behalf of Africa. The culture, our culture is different. You have to be, the husband is above, and we accept that, but that brings also challenge for women to grow as entrepreneurs. That's where they stay on the smaller stage. And let's also talk the reality of women. You are expected to settle down, especially we as a young women who are learning business. You're expected to be settled down on specific age, mostly 30 years old. They are starting to be stressed. Oh my God, now I'm going to have a family. I have to learn business. I have to do this. So I have to make one stop so that I can really focus on family. So the proportional share of housework and childcare responsibility also affect women entrepreneurs. So we've talked about special age due to social norms on women, specifically when we are supposed to settle down, sit down and having a family. It's a big issue with women entrepreneurs. I was having a conversation with my mentor I have back home in Rwanda. She's really doing very good with her organizations. She provides consultation to companies. She has 4 kids. She's really had good education, but up to now, she was talking to me how she was facing mental health issues due to, they were asking her, when are you going to have a 5th kid? And she was like, I already have 4 kids and I'm trying to manage my business. So how am I going to handle this? So the judgment into family members, into society, into this, it's become a lot, and it's something we're discussing. So I was trying to listen to her as someone who's 24 years old. I was like, imagine people who face this, and you're from a family with mindset different, so you can end up really learning away because it's too much for you. So all of these issues, it's something women go through in each and their everyday life. And that's why supporting women entrepreneurs, it's need to be understandable, but also I appreciate what She Trade. I actually attended one of She Trade's sessions, I think last year, for a few weeks, and it was very amazing. I appreciate how they support these women on the street who are just working to get 1,000 francs to buy food for the kids. So all of this, it must be considered how to take these women from lower level to upper level. We should also consider about, especially with women support, how can you make sure that you support these women? Maybe they don't have ICT knowledge to write application on website. Maybe they don't even know how to write. But one of the interesting things is that women are very heroes because they may not know how to write, how to send an email, but they're very wise on how to write down the money they gained by day, the profit, the revenue, how I'm going to go back to the market to buy new things as my stock. They already have a knowledge. But how do we take it to the next level? And I think that's where IT is coming from. So I appreciate that. Very quick, as I'm concluding, I'd like to talk about, next slide. Our company is very small. It's a startup company, but we have initiated how young women can be able to be taken to another level. So currently we have Resourceful Fellowship, where we're working with Youth to the Front End. It's a US non-based organization, which is supporting us in terms of having an employee, but helping us to also support ladies in a green tech. Because what we do, we are into green tech technology. So all of these women are graduated from Rwanda Coding Academy. They're into engineering, software, computer science, and they're working with us on the projects we have to be able to take it to the next level. So involving many women and having an experience for the next level is what we are aiming, and I hope we as a young people, we have this chance, but also our mothers who are still in the business, they also have a chance to grow to where they are. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on the launch of this exciting Digital Innovation Challenge. As someone from Nigeria, a lot of what you said about the social norms definitely hit close to home. And I'll be encouraging, other amazing young women like Jacqueline in our Generation Connect community to apply to this. And I hope you all will be reaching out to women in your networks and to share this and to ask them to continue to share, so as many women across the world can benefit from such incredible platforms and innovation challenges. So we're coming to an end of the celebration. I know she definitely would not want me to do this, but I really want to congratulate Loli for organizing the physical meeting here, but of course all our partners here, everyone who has spoken virtually, physically, those who sent videos. It's really made this an incredible event today. We hope all of you can join us next door for the cocktail reception, which is thanks to the kind support of our sponsor, Yildiz Holding AS. And in the spirit of collaboration and inspiration, I think we should all give ourselves a wonderful round of applause for getting to this point. All right, cocktail time. Take care, everyone, and we can continue the conversation next door. Thank you. Thank you. Very awesome.
That's at the top, the extra color.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.